So now that Mike from our dear partner TechCrunch Europe is here, I'm going to pass the microphone to him.
Well done, really good. Right. Thank you. I'm just going to hold it. Hazen, Roxanne, awesome. Well done. Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great time. Great to be here. Is this online? Yeah. Can I get a web browser?
Not on this one.
No? Not on this one?
No, I'm worried that if we close it.
Okay. Fine. Okay. So I have a. Is this on? Okay. Right. Guys, I maybe kind of. Use this. Wanted to sort of say something to you guys about something I'm noticing and I'm a bit worried about. It's to do with platforms and the future economic prosperity of us, basically, of Europe and of countries and of individuals. And it's basically also very much to do with startups, because I'm getting worried that we are all building crap that is not going to have a longevity and a value, and we really, really need to start thinking about, really deeply thinking about the future of our platforms. So I just want to sort of basically do something really, really high level. You know, forget kind of individual startups. I'm not going to talk about VC. I'm not going to talk about, you know, applications or iPhone or Android or whatever. I just want to talk about something which I think is kind of important to do with the future. And it goes like this, basically. In the 19th century, as Europe raced to capitalize on the economic boom that was the Industrial Revolution, steam engines were at the heart of this change. Now, I haven't done any PowerPoint. You're going to have to imagine a picture of a steam engine in your mind on there. And steam engines powered the machinery that helped us mine for coal. They powered the trains that reduced journey times to a fraction of their previous length. Steam engines powered the early battleships that ultimately contributed to the First World War and then led to the combustion engine, you know, before the First World War, and powered all of that Industrial Revolution. But steam engines were built here in Europe. We built steam engines, just as everyone else did. So if we are to accept that today, in 2011, we are experiencing an industrial revolution in information, data and platforms, why is it that we are importing steam engines rather than making them here? Why are we using big platforms which are not made here? So allow me to explain. Since the early days of the technology industry, the software has had no borders. You would create your own software. Back in the day, before the internet, you hire a sales team, sales and marketing team, send them out on planes to market and license and sell licenses. Literally truck roll. Everybody getting out there on cars, boats, planes, selling licenses to software. Easy. In the era of platforms created by mass market consumers and business use of software as a service, software has become globalized to an even greater extent. In particular, companies which have leveraged very large markets like the US or China have created juggernauts of platforms that are almost unassailable. I'm thinking, of course, of companies like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Tencent in China, Renren, big platforms. No one needs to get onto a plane to access these platforms and build applications onto them. Third-party applications and entire startups have been built onto these platforms, and they leverage their mass market scale and easy access to consumers. We know this, okay? This is obvious. But why bother creating an entirely new social network when you can simply integrate Facebook profiles into your startup and let them deal with identity? Why would you? So who needs to get onto a plane? You don't need to get into cars or boats or anything like that. You don't need to do it. But unfortunately, gradually, we have come to realize that this is not the case. You see, in the old world of desktop software and client-server applications, software came with documentation, changed very slowly. When it changed, all the customers and third-party developers knew about it, and they could change and upgrade accordingly. That was the old model. In the new world of the API, documentation rarely keeps up with changes in the platform. How many times have you built something, an application, say on Facebook or Twitter, and they've gone and changed the API without telling anybody, and suddenly it doesn't work? It happens, right? So guess what? The people closest to the company that control the platform get to hear about the changes first. So if you sign a partnership agreement with Facebook or Twitter to get early access to changes to the platform, say as Y Combinator, the startup program, or C-Camp have, which allow their startups to benefit over others faster, or if you simply drive over to Facebook's HQ or Twitter and have lunch with an engineer that you know who's a friend, then you will have an advantage, won't you? So it turns out that these global platforms actually favor companies within their physical proximity, despite the global reach of the internet. And because the changes made to the cloud services so frequently, and because they're always being iterated, that the companies close to them, especially say in Silicon Valley, know what's going on months before the rest of the world, weeks, perhaps months. So it turns out we were duped into thinking this wasn't about geography. We thought that the internet was a global platform, but instead the platforms are being created very, very quickly and iterated very, very quickly in geographies we don't necessarily have access to. It turns out, in fact, that the fastest moving startups and tech companies are going to be the ones who have close relations, and I mean physically close relations, with the big platforms. So what are we going to do about it? Where are our platforms? So what are we going to do about it in Europe? And why are we importing steam engines when we should be making them ourselves? The US has platforms, China has platforms, where are ours? Xing, the LinkedIn competitor out of Germany, has been extremely disappointing as a platform. StudiVZ was a Facebook clone in Germany, disappointing. Future platforms are coming out of places like, we just heard about Spotify, which is obviously going to be a big music platform. SoundCloud in Berlin are trying to become the platform for audio, for sound, literally. Shall I ask you, can Deezer become the platform for music? It needs to. And we should note that in 2 years' time, the Russian internet sector, with 120 million potential users, will be the biggest internet market in Europe. Yandex, the search engine, is starting to invest in startups and build out its own platform. Chinese internet startups like RenRen are expanding into overseas markets in Asia, and who knows when they will go into other borders. And I think that also we need to recognize that the next platforms are probably going to be quite different to the ones that we have at the moment. Recently, writers like John Battelle have realized that the next generation of social networks probably won't look like Facebook at all. Just 2 minutes left. He said, just as Google had early dominance in lighting up a portion of the web, Facebook had early dominance in lighting up a portion of the world's social graph. But much like the dark web, there exists network upon network, not yet graphed by Facebook, waiting to be mapped, organized, and optimized for communication. And even Americans now are talking about the possible death of their own platforms. Could Twitter get MySpaced? Was a headline recently on TechMeme. Out of fear of the threat from Uber Media, Twitter has had to buy TweetDeck for $50 million. So clearly there are signs that in years to come there will be other threats to these big platforms. So that's going to create opportunities for entrepreneurs and for startups. One of the big questions of Tim Wu's path-breaking book, The Master Switch, is that every American information industry, beginning with the telephone, has eventually been taken captive by some kind of monopoly or cartel, think platform. With all of our media now traveling a single network, and unprecedented potential is building for centralized control over what Americans see and hear. And could history repeat itself with the next industrial consolidation, the next industrial revolution, the one we're living in now? Could the internet come to be ruled by one corporate leviathan in possession of the master switch? That's the title of the book. And this is a platform issue. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I wanted to say. I say to you now that we must now build our own steam engines, okay? Thank you. I'm not sure if I can answer any questions because I don't necessarily have the answers. But how is everybody? You want to? Are you good? Having a good time?
Great, thank you.
Okay. I'll talk to you later anyway. Thank you.